Hi Vinyl community, it's Mike here, and today's video is all about VCLT that I've received recently, and it's come from two people, and every one of these albums is something that I don't think I would ever have come across if it hadn't been for those people either talking about them or sending them to me. So I'll start off with the first one. And this comes from my friend Mike, PC31, down on the south coast of the UK. And this is an indie album from 1981. Band are called Second Layer, and the album is called World of Rubber. And I'd never come across these guys before. And apparently they are Adrian Borland and Graham Bailey, who were of the band The Sound. And The Sound is a band that Mike likes very much. And again, it's a band that I don't know all that much about myself. But this is a 2023 reissue, and it's absolutely wonderful. So, you know, it's indie rock, it's post-punk, it's got krautrock influences in there. And yeah, it's really, really good. In a way, it's quite sort of similar to maybe Swell Maps. It's not quite as quirking out there as Swell Maps, but I'm sure that if you were a fan of Swell Maps, you would like this. But you know, and for those of you that aren't fans of Swell Maps, don't let that put you off, because it is an absolutely brilliant indie album, and I had no idea say that this band existed until a couple of weeks ago, and yeah, they are really, really excellent. So this is their only album. I think they had a couple of singles or EPs as well, but yeah, if you get a chance, you know, check these guys out and you know, go and get the album. So I'll leave a link to Mike's channel in the description as usual. So the next few albums are all from the same person, and they're from a friend of mine, a French guy down in Melbourne, in Australia, called Fred. And Fred's English-speaking channel is called Big Star 1000. But he also has a French-speaking channel, and he tends to use that a little bit more for videos than he does the English one. So I'll leave links to both of those channels. And Fred shows a lot of, you know, composed sort of, you know, classic rock and stuff like that. But he also shows an awful lot of really unusual stuff. Lots of excellent guitar music, and yeah, absolutely wonderful stuff. You know, he's one of these people that's prepared to sort of go out there and look for new music and discover, you know, new sounds, as I am. And yeah, so he sent me this stuff. He sent me 5 albums, would you believe, all the way from Australia, and every one of them is an absolute winner as far as I'm concerned. So let's get going with them. The first one, this is an album by a guy from Melbourne called Adam Halliwell, and it's called Freedom Lapse, and it was released in 2023, recorded in 2020, and it's his debut solo album. He's also guitarist in a Melbourne band called Wildlife, and you know, this album is influenced by two things really. Firstly, he was in Mexico just before the pandemic struck, so you know, it's influenced by, you know, the landscape in Mexico that he was wandering through before he had to return to Australia. And it's also influenced by a composer called John Hassell. And in the notes to this album, Adam Halliwell says that he listened to John Hassell's albums, Power Spot and Flesh of the Spirit. And he was sort of blown away by these albums. He hadn't heard them before. And John Hassel is a guy I don't really know all that much about, but he's like the originator of a sort of fourth world sound. So this is a sound that sort of merges all sorts of disparate sort of influences. So you've got composed music, you've got improvised music, all mixed together. You've got Eastern and Western sounds. So sounds from all different cultures sort of like merged together to sort of create this sort of soundscape for you. And there's also very much sort of digital sounds mixed with ancient sounds. And I think if you like David Sylvian or Peter Gabriel, and Fred said this in a letter to me, if you like those, then you like this. And it's a lovely album. As I say, it combines all the things that I've just talked about in the sort of the fourth world music genre, if you can call it that. But it's it's an instrumental album. It's quite psychedelic in parts. It's quite sort of jazzy, and it's the sort of music that you can really get lost in, if you know what I mean. In parts, it's sort of quite sort of drony, and it's absolutely wonderful. And there you go. I'll show you the back. You can see all the tracks on there. So what label is it on? It's on Elations Recordings, an Australian label. And I wouldn't have come across this if it hadn't been for Fred, and I'm glad I have. It's brilliant. Right, the second one, and this is an album that was initially self-released on cassette by the band, or really they're not really a band, they're more of a collective, I think, or were a collective up in Brisbane. And this was initially released on cassette, just a few hundred copies on cassette in 1987. And in 2022, it got a well-deserved vinyl release. And the collective are called Picture Music, and the album is called Picture Music. So it's a double album, and it's on it's at the Left Ear, yes, the Left Ear sort of record label, another Australian record label. And as I say, it's a double album, but each side of the album is quite short. I think possibly it would fit onto three sides of an album altogether. And it's really great. It's again, there are these krautrock influences in there, and Fred mentioned Cluster, he mentioned Brian Eno, and I can really see that in there. But so much more of the sort of the 70s and 80s German music scene is in there, and being not sampled exactly, but being appreciated by these guys, and they're certainly influenced by all of that stuff. And yeah, this is an absolutely lovely album, and I'm really pleased to have it. The next one is weird. It's the only way to describe it. Now, again, it's another Australian album, and it's Kiri-Uu. And what this is Estonian folk music reimagined in Australia. And there we are. The album is called Creak, Whoosh, and it says Creaking in the Wind, 1985 to 1988. So it's a compilation album, and it caught me out when I first played it, because side one is 45 RPM and side two is 33, and I should have noticed that. And when I first put on side one at 33, it still sounded pretty good, but it certainly sounds better played at the right speed. And yeah, so these are guys that they're part of first generation sort of immigrants from Estonia, from Northern Europe, into Australia, and they brought their that they brought their traditional music with them, but then they've adapted it, and it's subtle. It's electronic. It's almost like it's in parts. It's as though you're sitting in a church. You're listening to sacred music. It's wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And again, there's no way I would ever have come across this album if it wasn't for Fred sending it to me. And I'm so pleased that he has. It's absolutely brilliant. I love this stuff. As I say, it's a bit weird. It's a bit wonderful. And, it's this, reimagining of Northern European folk music. Yeah. What more can I say? It's just fantastic. So thank you for that. Right. Now, the next one, it's not an Australian artist, but it's on an Australian label. The Australian label is called Efficient Music. And this is the album. And it's by Megabasse. And it's called Flamanka, as you can see. And Megabasse is the name that a Belgian guitarist called Pierre Bougeot uses. And he's from Brussels, I think. And the music itself, he plays a double neck guitar, and he uses twin Fender amps, and that's it. And you listen to this music and you wonder, how the hell can anybody get a guitar to sound like this? So, at times you think you're listening to, instruments like a zither, for instance, or you're hearing the sort of drone of a harmonium. It's just wonderful, wonderful stuff. And the reason that Fred sent me this album is that we were together on a live stream, on French Vinyl Addict's sort of live stream, and we were talking about all sorts of stuff, and the conversation was going into all sorts of weird and wonderful places. And we were talking about a Welsh primitive guitarist called Gwennifer Raymond, that both Fred and Romuald had just sort of discovered her. And they'd got the latest album. I just bought the latest album. I bought the previous album as well. And we were talking about this. And then Fred dragged this album out from his shelves and said, Mike, if you like Gwennifer Raymond, I think you'll like this. And I thought, yeah, I'm sure I will. And it's arrived, and yes, it's a great album, Fred, and I'm really pleased to have it. You can see the tracks on there, and just 3 tracks in all. And as I say, it's guitar music, but it's guitar as you'd never really heard it before. I don't know how he gets those sounds out of a guitar, quite honestly, but it's great stuff. And I left this one till last, and the reason is that it was such a surprise, and it's just so wonderful. It's a mesmerising album as far as I'm concerned, and it's First Nations album, and it's by this guy, and he's called Keanu Nelson, and the album is called Wilurarrakutu, and there he is, and the guy, he's not a trained musician. In fact, he's an artist. He's part of the desert painting movement, and I mean, it's not a great example because it's just in monochrome there, but you get the idea. It's that sort of painting. They're usually sort of very brightly coloured and steeped in significance and culture. Anyway, he's from Northern Territories, and as I say, he's not a trained musician. And in the notes here, and there's really, really lovely notes here about Keanu and about the making of this album. There's all details of the tracks on the back there, but it says that Keanu started singing at the age of 7, and and like so many people in his community, in where was it? I wrote it down. I can't remember now. Papunya, in Northern Territories, and he was singing gospel at community gospel night. So everyone would get up and sing, and it would be to, preset keyboard sounds, and that was it. That was it. That's his musical background. But he's an absolute natural. This guy, he composes his stuff, and he's got a wonderful voice. It's his singing is sort of for me, it's mesmerising, absolutely lovely. And the album itself, he's accompanied by a keyboard. It sounds like it's probably just a sort of little, Casio keyboard or something. It's the backing music is quite sort of minimal, and I think that's really good because it doesn't detract from his wonderful singing. And I'll show you the back so you can see all the tracks on there. And this again is an absolutely wonderful album, and I'm so pleased to have got that. And I've been playing that one in particular over and over, and I'm still not sick of it. So thank you very much, Fred. Thank you very much, Mike. It's always nice to receive VCLT, but it's even nicer when you receive stuff that turns out to be absolutely wonderful, and you wouldn't have bought it yourself or even discovered it yourself. So yeah, that's it. That's all I've got to say, and I'll leave the links in the description. So until next time, I'll see you all. Bye.